Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of Plugged In from YAA. My name is Justin Fisher, and today I'm joined again by the wonderful auto expert, Justice, from the YAA community. How are you doing, Justice?
I'm doing fantastic today. It's a nice cloudy day. Big break from the 101-degree heat yesterday. So
Well, today we're
very
having
happy.
a record high temperature here in West Virginia, and you know what that record high is supposed to be?
What's that?
88 degrees. It's an
88.
all-time record for my part of the state. Yes. So it's a hot day, and today we're gonna be talking about a whole bunch of topics. It's been a slow week when it comes to the EV news, but there are a few things we can touch on. We're gonna focus on Tesla, their amazing and transformative 4680 battery cells, but how bringing them to market isn't quite what we thought it would be. So did Tesla trick us? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Maybe we'll even debate about it. Also, we're going to focus on home charging. We've had quite a bit of viewer and listener questions about home charging an electric vehicle. What do you need to know? Is it expensive? Can you just plug it into the wall like I do? We'll talk about that here in a minute. Good morning, Jordan. Happy to see you in the chat. Good morning, Michael, John, Neil, George, Learning Fast, Susanna. Hello. I believe you had a question about home charging, Susanna. Looking forward to talking about that today. Dwayne from Dallas, Texas. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I moved to West Virginia just a year ago. Hello, Dallas. Don't miss the heat. Space, I believe you're here. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for checking out the show today. Justice, let's talk Tesla. You have/had a Tesla Model 3 and you love it. First of all,
Absolutely.
remind the viewers what happened to your Tesla so we don't leave them hanging.
Oh, you keep wanting me to dredge up these horrible, horrible memories. So I was driving up in the mountains here in Northern California, and I hit a deer. So the autopilot did warn me. It beeped. I just didn't pay attention to it, and then it actually ended up breaking, and I steered but dented the front frame. It was a very, very large deer. So it ended up totaling out the car. As you know, Tesla's sort of die cast. There's only two parts to it, soon to be one part. Um, so ended up totaling it out. Now I'm just waiting for my Cybertruck.
But you're safe, and that's what matters.
I am safe. The only airbags did not deploy, even though it bent the frame. But I didn't feel much of anything. No interior damage. It was just the right front quarter panel frame that got bent. I mean, the car did well for a 600-pound animal.
Wow. Well, rest in peace to the deer. Sad story, but I'm
No,
glad you're okay.
sorry. The deer got up and ran away.
Oh, and lived a
Yeah,
sad, suffering life in the forests of California. Well, I'm
yeah.
sure it's gone on to a happier place now. Shall we
Oh,
talk Honda?
all right.
We got a little bit of Honda news. They gave us a little something this morning. Honda is partnering with General Motors, of all automakers, to build their first electric vehicle, which reminds me, I was going to make this the trivia question today. I'll have to come up with another trivia question on the fly here in a minute. The question was going to be which major automaker is not releasing their very first electric vehicle in the American market until 2024, and it is Honda. They're actually not even building it on their own. They're relying on General Motors to build the Honda Prologue. I'll admit it looks pretty nice. I think this is a nice looking electric vehicle. And if it's going to be built on GM's Ultium platform, it may have some tricks up its sleeve as far as advanced battery technology. Honda's trying to catch up. They've been
Yeah,
known for great hybrid powertrains. What was that?
I would say, all these EV makers are starting to partner up now. I think that it's fantastic for every side of this. I think Honda's probably going to end up doing really well.
And I'm fascinated to wait and see how the pricing ends up being for the Honda Prologue EV, because General Motors has been really emphasizing that they're going to catch up to Tesla by offering affordability where others don't. I don't know how much I buy that. Well, okay, I believe that they will be more affordable than Tesla. I just hope it's a successful business strategy for their sake. electric vehicles are
That's a
only
low
getting,
bar.
yeah,
A low bar to be cheaper than Tesla.
yeah, because also, if you think about it, electric vehicles are not getting any cheaper to produce. We've seen raw material prices go up by 1,000% in some cases for some rare earth metals that are needed for battery production. You've even got things like aluminum and iron and other metals that are used in frames going up in prices, not to mention just the whole supply chain being disrupted because of not only the pandemic, but now we've got international geopolitics getting into the mix. It's not really a good time to be promising a super affordable EV. But the only way electric vehicles are going to win over the masses is if they are far more affordable than they are today. I believe the average transaction price for a new electric vehicle in 2022, Zach told me it's $65,000. That's more than I paid for my Hyundai Ioniq 5. I want people to try out EVs and buy into the amazing ride, the amazing fuel savings, and not to mention how it helps the planet at least somewhat. But it's not going to happen if they don't get cheaper. So I hope Honda and GM do have a successful partnership, get together and sell affordable EVs. But
Well, you know why they're all $65,000?
because
Because
people won't
Tesla
pay
has
that.
a 75% market share.
Yes.
The Tesla is $65,000.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I wonder who the big three will be in 2030. I don't know. We'll speculate maybe later. As far as the recent news, here is a quote from Honda's Mamadou Diallo, Vice President of Auto Sales of Honda America. Quote, "We announced a plan 2 years ago positioned as a smart strategy to co-develop an electric vehicle with GM. What will result is not just a more efficient process, but a great looking new vehicle, the Honda Prologue. Our dealers are excited about Prologue and the fact that it is just the first volume Honda EV with more engineered EVs on the way by 2026. What they gave us new is a timeline. So here's the timeline they shared today. 2024, begin Honda Prologue sales. That's quite a ways from now. 2026, begin production and sales of Honda models based on their new proprietary architecture called E-architecture. So they're not always going to be using the Ultium battery platform from GM. And by 2027, they plan to begin production and sales of a new series of affordable EVs based on their architecture co-developed with GM that goes beyond the Ultium platform. So right now they're sharing the Ultium platform, but by 2027, they're going to be partnering on the next generation battery technology. I can only wonder what that's going to be. I don't know. The Ultium platform already will have a charging advantage over Ford's F-150 Lightning. Once the Chevy Silverado EV makes it to market, it will charge quite a bit faster than the F-150 Lightning. So with that in mind, I wonder what Honda's going to be bringing to market in 2027. Do you think it's too late in the game, Justice? Or are they going to be okay by waiting an extra 3 or 4 years?
No, I don't think it's too late in the game at all. I think though Tesla has been around for a long time, the game is still just beginning. Everyone else is just starting into it. And I think there's a lot of development still that has to come. I think in 5 years from now, we're going to be looking at the most advanced battery technology now is old and antiquated.
Yes, yes, indeed. And a few moments ago, we asked the crowd, the internet world, what would be the big three automakers in 2030? Space also goes by Mario, one of our other auto advocates over at the YAA community, thinks it will be Tesla, Toyota, and Ford as the top three EV automakers. And in his opinion, the Chinese are not too far behind. I've been wondering when some of the big Chinese EV makers like NIO and Xpeng or Xiaopeng, I believe is how you say it. I wonder when they're going to make it to the US. I know they're already having a presence in Europe. Justice, have you heard anything about either of the big Chinese automakers coming to the US? I have not.
I haven't heard a date, but I know they're coming. I when we were at the LA Auto Show, they had Neo had a presence there, and they were talking. So I know they're coming. They have plans. My guess is they break in kind of all at once rather than piecemeal. So we'll see.
Earlier this year, it was announced that NIO, which sells hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles in China every year, they have leased a very, very large building in San Jose, California for a U.S. headquarters research and development facility. NIO has plans in the US. It's just a matter of time. I'm sure they're giving it extra thought considering Tesla still has 75% market share. Ford is planning to come roaring into the scene. I'm sure that they've got to put some extra thought into that, but we'll be looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. And I think that's a good topic for a future show. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of growth there, and a lot of foreign companies are moving in and putting some U.S. headquarters in. I think there's a lot of discussion there.
Tesla this morning has agreed to build a battery and EV factory in Indonesia, according to an Indonesian official. Elon Musk recently met with the Indonesian president. Now, I know they're planning, or there's rumors of a factory in India too. Has that happened? I forget.
I feel like it's not official yet, but Elon said it's everything except for official at this point.
Yes, yes. And I believe the Indian government is asking Tesla to include more of the Indian supply chain before basically allowing them to come there and build a factory. That's an interesting perspective, but we know that Asian automakers are already coming to the US. We just talked about NIO, but also VinFast from
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam. They've announced they're building a factory in North Carolina and hiring thousands of people to build the VF8 and VF9 electric SUVs. VinFast is a bit controversial because they are batteries not included. You've got to lease the battery. So if you're making a $500, $600 a month car payment, you also need to make a $100 or $200 a month payment for your battery. Someone out there correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but it's in that ballpark. And I'm personally not a big fan, but I wish them all the success in the world.
It's an interesting idea. I get some of the advantages of it. You know, if you're leasing your battery, if something goes wrong, they just swap it out. New technology comes, they swap out the battery. You don't change your car, you're still paying for your car, but you can have brand new battery technology. It's an idea. Whether it's a good idea or not, we'll see. But I understand the concept.
If you're just joining us live on YouTube, today we are about to dive into Tesla's new 4680 cells and how they are being implemented in the Tesla lineup right now. After that, we're going to talk quite a bit about home charging, probably for the rest of the show. So send us your questions, leave us your questions in the chat, and we look forward to talking about home charging in about 6 or 7 minutes. Looking forward to that. Mark is with us live. Mark is a battery expert, definitely knows more than I do, and I look forward to looping you into this conversation we're about to have. Let's talk Tesla. The 4680 cell was announced about a year ago now, right, Justice?
Yeah,
Think so?
if you're just a little over, yeah.
Now, the 4680 cell is a different form factor. Think of it like this. Tesla usually uses, like if you look behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, Tesla usually used a 2170 cell that is more like a AA battery, if you were to use an example from household electronics. But now it's bumping up to a larger form factor called the 4680. It has something to do with the size and the millimeters. I forget. But it's not the size that really matters. There's a few different things that make it completely transformative for Tesla's EVs. It's tabless. Now, tabless batteries would be able to transfer power more efficiently, and the production process can be streamlined in a way that has never been done before. Battery manufacturing has always been a huge pain in the butt because of, well, various factors, but also just the process of including a tab on a battery. I've seen videos of how that just slows down the whole manufacturing process. And Mark in the chat, let me know what you know about this because it's just fascinating. In addition to that, energy density is a little bit different, but also they're going to be including the 4680 cells into a structural battery pack built into the floor of the Tesla. Justice, do you know what the benefits of a structural battery pack might be?
Well, obviously giving stability to the vehicle, and then performance, weight balancing. And that's probably the biggest one is the weight balancing of it, so you can actually hold more energy more efficiently.
When Tesla announced the 4680 cells about a year ago, they claimed on a big fancy PowerPoint slide it would lead to a 16% increase in range. So remember that? 6 times the power. I'm sure we're talking about per area density, per unit
Yeah.
area, which that makes sense. And they also talked about affordability. Now that we're getting the first Model Ys built with the 4680 structural battery pack entering the market, we're seeing something a little bit different, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. So, what are we seeing? Tesla is notifying Model Y reservation holders that live near Giga Austin, Tesla's new factory in Austin, Texas, that if they want to expedite delivery of their Model Y, they can opt for a brand new standard range all wheel drive Model Y with the 4680 cells. The price of this Austin built standard range all wheel drive Model Y is $60,000. If you recall, like 6 months ago, the long range all wheel drive Model Y was about what, 54,000? Yeah. So it looks like they've stepped up the costs for a number of reasons. Of course, supply shortages, the whole supply chain is getting more expensive. I'm sure there's inflation, not to mention the fact that people are clearly willing to pay the premium for a
Yeah.
Tesla. I mean, if they're willing to pay it, they'll probably keep raising the price. But as they've stepped
Used
up,
prices keep going up, so people are willing to pay more than Tesla is selling them for.
if so now we have a long range all wheel drive Model Y, the normal, the Model Y you see on the road everywhere around you. That one starts at 62,990. They've bumped up the price so that now they can fit in a standard range all wheel drive Model Y for 60,000. What do you get for the price? 279 miles of EPA rated range. Not bad, especially with the amazing supercharger network, but it's less than the 330 that the long range all wheel drive Model Y is rated for. You also have a 0 to second time of about 5 seconds. That's about the same as my Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's just about 0.2 seconds slower than the long range Model Y, so I don't think you're taking a hit there. I can't complain about a 5-second 0 to 60 time. But the price to me is a little bit deceptive, and the fact that it's 279 miles of range for $60,000. No federal EV incentives for Tesla. They've already reached and exceeded their 200,000 sale cap. Justice, am I being too harsh on Tesla here that they kind of tricked us with the 4680 cells, or is it simply just how they're dealing with the battery shortage? I forgot to mention, they're relying on Panasonic to build these batteries. Tesla is beginning to ramp up slowly its own battery production, but right now they're relying on Panasonic. So is this just how they've dealt with battery supply shortages,
Yeah,
or are they just trying to make more money?
no, I don't think. I mean, of course, they're trying to make more money. That's that's what everyone does. But I think really this is just the rollout of what's to come with them. They're trying to concentrate, as you said, on their own battery manufacturing. This is to get the 4680 out as quickly as possible. This isn't their end. This is just the really inception of it all. So I think everything's going to ramp up. We'll see some costs come down when they take over their own production, and we'll probably see a lot of increased numbers then too. I think for me, I see this as sort of the beta rollout of the 4680. You can only get it in the Texas market. Uh, so it's just sort of trying things out, putting it out there because they said they were going to put it out there. Didn't know about all the supply chain issues and pandemic and everything when they announced it. So they're, playing some catch up, but I see nothing but huge improvements from here.
And not to mention the fact that now that I'm thinking about this, the 279-mile range, if Tesla's able to actually get close to that rated range, it's not a bad deal considering that you have superchargers all over the state of Texas now, because that's Tesla's home state. But my Ioniq 5 gets 256 miles of range. You've got EVs coming to market in 2022, like the Toyota BZ4X with 227 miles of range. 279 is not bad, but in the past, we've seen that Tesla vehicles don't always reach their rated range, whereas I've seen that my Ioniq 5's rated range is actually pretty accurate. So I think I may be being a little bit harsh, but I think it's the price that just frustrates me a bit with how Tesla's handling this. If I had known that a standard range all-wheel drive Model Y was coming to market for 52,000, I may have waited and gone the Tesla route, because I acknowledge Tesla's technology superiority with, you know, the future of self-driving, even though it's not there yet, and especially over-the-air updates, that would be so convenient. But I'm just thinking that's a bit expensive for what you get. I don't know.
Well, as all new technology is, I think you'll see that price come down, especially when markets sort of flatten out and things shake out a little bit. I think EV is one of the markets that'll actually come down in price once things shake out a bit. And this technology has only potential to go down. I don't think you're going to see in 5 years a $70,000 standard range Model Y, whereas many of the ICE vehicles, I think MSRPs are going to go up from today.
Yeah, and that reminds me. So MSRP is going up. Educational Technology in the chat says, Zach and Ray say if you don't need a car today, stay out of the market. Do you think it's worth it to wait for new EV cars on the horizon? I don't regret getting my Ioniq 5 at MSRP. I would not pay an outrageous markup over, I mean, I wouldn't pay over MSRP right now, but definitely not over 3,000 over MSRP for a new electric vehicle in 2022, because it's a fact that by 2024, 2025, electric vehicles will be far more capable, especially when it comes to the charging realm, which we're about to dive into. Wait for it if you can't find a good deal, especially if you're relying on the fact that the future of EVs will allow you to charge in a way that is much closer to what we're used to by stopping at a gas station. If you're not willing to wait for 30 minutes at a charger while you're road tripping, wait a few years. Do you agree, Justice?
Yeah, I wouldn't, unless you have to buy right now, I would still say even in the EV market, I wouldn't buy right now. I would wait 3 years, honestly. I think that's the good time frame that things are going to really have been ramped up. You're going to see the huge competition, and as always, competition will help lower some of these prices and increase the technology. So if it were me, I would wait, like I've been waiting since 2019 for my Cybertruck.
And I hope it comes. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
I'm rooting for you, Justice. A few other good comments and questions in the chat. We're going to trickle ourselves into the realm of home charging. Get it? Trickle charging? Okay. Susanna says, the bigger the battery, the heavier the weight, or is that a non-issue? That is true. My Ioniq 5 weighs 4,600 pounds. That's more than a Ford F-150. It's because of all the batteries. The future of EVs, there's a solid chance that we may end up with like 250 miles of range being the norm. You have a lighter weight vehicle. The automakers are able to ration their batteries, because a lot of people think that the future is going to be battery shortages rather than chip shortages, right? So with 250 miles of range, you can use less batteries than you would need for like a 400-mile range EV. And it could be, in theory, less expensive to make and more affordable for the consumer. So weight matters when it comes to how quickly your tires are going to be burning out. I mean, I've seen that my tires are degrading quicker than my previous ICE vehicles have, but it's not a big issue. What it comes down to is how expensive is the car to build, how many batteries does it need, and how is that going to affect the MSRP once it's eventually in the hands of the consumer. So we'll be talking more about that in the future. Let's talk home charging.
That real fast, the 800-volt architecture, the charging speeds, the more infrastructure we get and the more we're able to fast charge like what you have on your Ionic, the smaller the batteries need to be, because you'll have more places to stop and recharge very quickly and go on about your business. So we won't be talking about range as much in the future. We'll be talking about how quickly it charges and how many stations near you there are, which I think Elon has an answer for.
And I'm going to brag for a minute, Justice. Everyone bear with me. Yesterday, I went to Electrify America for the first time in a month with my 2022 Ionic 5 all-wheel drive. It was me and a Volkswagen ID4 that pulled in next to me and a BMW i3 on the other side. Let's just ignore the i3 because it was charging at such a ridiculously slow rate. I hope they didn't pay too much for it. I pulled in at 15% state of charge in my Ionic 5. I had been driving on the freeway, so my battery was warmed up because I do not have battery preconditioning, and that frustrated me. But my battery was warmed up after going 75 on the highway, 15% state of charge, plugged in, zoomed right up to 230 kilowatts, held it till about 55% state of charge. So to go from 15 to 80% state of charge, it only took me 19 minutes. I timed it. And then I kept on going because I was honestly enjoying a snack. This charger was at a gas station, ironically. It took 28 minutes to get to 90%. So 15 to 90%, 28 minutes. With an EV, the charge rate always slows down when you get higher in the pack as the battery management system figures out where to put that energy. But why am I bragging? Because the ID4 next to me, during that same time that I went from 15 to 90%, it only went from about 40 to 65%. I like my Ionic 5, but thank you for bearing with me while I just brag about my charge rate. All right, so actually, that's the first time I've been to a public fast charger in a month. I charge at home almost all the time. Justice, what is the benefit of charging at home for EV drivers?
So the benefit is obviously it's convenience. You don't have to go to that public charging. You know, we talk all the time. When I had my Model 3, you asked once how many charging stations were near me. I had to look it up because I never went. I never went unless I was on a road trip. I didn't go to the supercharging stations. I had free fast charging through an affiliate link that I got when I bought my Model 3. Still, I barely used it because it was always at home. You know, you come home, you plug in, you get up in the morning, it's full. You always have a full tank of gas. So people worry that, oh, I don't want to go to sit at the charger for an hour. You really don't. You almost, unless you're on a road trip, you never really go out to those chargers.
Yeah, and it all depends on how much you drive. So everyone who's listening out there, think about this. How much do you drive on the typical day? Personally, my wife and I, we share the Ionic 5 to save fuel. We also have a Subaru, but Ionic 5 is basically free to drive. So we drive combined between the two of us about 40 miles a day. If you drive, I would say, less than 50 miles per day and have access to a public fast charger somewhere within your vicinity, you can just plug in overnight into the wall into a 110 volt outlet, and you should be fine. In my opinion, unless you drive a lot more than that, you could just plug into the wall, and honestly, there's no additional cost. All electric vehicles except for Tesla and one other, I forget what it is, they come with home chargers. So my Hyundai Ioniq 5, it came with a home charger. I just plug it into the wall. It's slow. It's called trickle charging. But overnight, I gain back the 40 miles that I drove during the day. So I'm just waking up at basically the same roughly 80% battery level every day. Justice, at what point would you say it's worth it to spend roughly $1,000 to upgrade to a faster level 2 charger for your home?
Well, first check the incentives in your area, because some of us paid $0 for ours.
Very good point.
But I think realistically, if you're driving more than 60 miles a day, I think 50 to 60 is probably that range where you want to step up to the level 2 and it was very easy for me. We just put was a 32 amp outlet on a 50 amp breaker, and I'm in a multi-unit complex. We just happen to have storage units by the parking that have electrical through them, so they were able to jack in there and put the outlet in there for me, and then I just used my charging cord, and I was charging it, I know, 30 miles an hour.
That's
I think
pretty good.
is what I was averaging my charge at the end of the night, and it was just a cord, looked kind of like your the laundry plug in your house, for your washing machine or your dryer. That's what it looked like. Plug it into the car, and it was always more than enough for me.
So I think this is a good time to talk about the differences between level 1 charging, level 2 charging, and level 3 charging. To get it out of the way, level 3 charging is when you're at a public fast charger like Electrify America, Tesla Supercharger, EVgo. Those are level 3 chargers. You can add, correct me if I'm wrong, Justice, but up to 800 miles per hour. Of course, there's no EV with 800-mile range, but it's on a per hour basis, it'd be about 800 miles of range added per hour of charging. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds about. I mean,
for a quick charging.
With battery management, it'll be a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah. Level 2 charging, this is if you have a 240 volt outlet available at home, or if you get it installed, which can require costly electrician work. So check with an electrician first. That's going to give you between 20 and 30 miles of range added per hour. Now, if you're thinking, this is ridiculous, I could just go to the gas station. You plug in overnight while you're sleeping, your car charges. It's just a different way of having an ownership experience. Before you talk trash about it, think about it. How do you charge your phone? Do you yell at your phone when it's charging slowly overnight? No, you're asleep. Same with an EV. Just plug it in and wake up to a battery that's full if you have a level 2 charger. I have not installed a level 2 charger. I am on level 1 charging, which is, this is pathetic, but it's free, about 4 miles of range per hour. But if you think about it, I plug in at like 8 or 9 p.m., unplug at like 8 a.m. the next day, and I've gained those 40 miles of driving that I consume in the average driving day. So it's not a problem for me. And I haven't had to spend $1,000 because I don't have incentives where I live in West Virginia. We had a question. What kilowatts do I pull with my level 1 home charging? 1.4 kilowatts. That's what it says, 1.4. But for comparison, a level 3 public fast charger in my Ioniq 5 is about 230 kilowatts. It's roughly the same in Teslas. Some other EVs are a bit slower, 100 to 150 kilowatts. But you get the difference. It's quite a vast difference.
Yeah, I think I was pulling, I looked at once, I think I was pulling 8 or 7 or 8. So at home. So
good question from John. Do EV batteries maintain their charges? It depends, but in general, yes. I know that if you leave an electric vehicle sitting without driving it for like a month, it will lose what they call phantom charge, or what's it called? Phantom loss, I believe.
That's phantom loss, yeah.
And it can be a few percent, but it's not going to be a gigantic loss if you don't drive your vehicle. Another question we had, do you need equipment? So for the level 1 charging that I'm talking about, slow charging, generally no. But now if you buy a Tesla, you do need to expect to spend an extra $200 to buy the home charging equipment. Almost every other electric vehicle does come with free, quote unquote free, because it's in the price of the vehicle, charging equipment. So you don't need to buy anything. Just plug it into the wall. If you want to do quicker level 2 charging, where you can add 30 miles of range per hour overnight, you will be needing to buy a level 2 charger and have an electrician safely install it, unless you have a 240 volt outlet already within reach. This is where you can buy what is called a splitter. We had a question or comment about this on the YAA community. If you're not on the YAA community forum, what are you doing? Go head over there. Go join. But we had a question. Do I know anything about splitters or the split volt splitter? That's a popular brand of splitter. Yes, they're awesome, but I don't have a 240 volt outlet, so I don't have one. But if you have a splitter, instead of paying an electrician $1,000 to $2,000 to get your home wired appropriately, you can just buy this $200 to $300 device, plug it in to the existing 240-volt outlet, and then you can power both household appliances and charge your car with the same 240-volt outlet, saving you a lot of money and allowing you to charge very quickly at home. I'm jealous of people who have 240 volts available, but I've got a house built in 1920, so I don't have it. All right. Any other questions in the chat? Let's take a look. Let's see. Would you recommend going ahead and installing a 240-volt outlet or 220-volt outlet right now if you don't plan to buy an electric vehicle for a few years? That's a good question. I'm going to give my opinion, and then Justice, I want you to give yours too. My opinion is wait, because there may be new incentives coming in the intervening time that you're waiting for your electric vehicle. Congress is always talk, but they're not really doing it. We'll see if Congress ever gets around to changing or revising any of the electric vehicle incentives, not to mention what your local and state incentives might be, and they may change. So unless you know that your local incentives are about to be exhausted for electric vehicle charging rebates or reimbursement, tax credits, unless you know that they're about to go away, I would wait. There may be more incentives in a few years' time. Justice, do you agree or disagree? Don't be afraid to disagree.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I agree in the look at your incentives and look at what's coming and figure that out. The 240 can be very useful for other things in your house. So, washer, dryer, like we said. It just depends on your market. If you have, here's where I'll break with you. If you have the cash to do it, it does add value to your home. So, if you're going to resell in that time, you can recoup some of that. It depends how much it costs in your area. I have seen $1,000, and I have seen people get it installed for $300. So, it's all a balance. Depends how much is in your area and how much that is to you. But for me, it doesn't hurt to put it in and be prepared, and then it's not an additional expense you have when you buy your EV.
Susanna says she plans to put an EV outlet in her garage. I'm assuming you mean 220 or 240 volt. That's great because it is an investment in your home, and it honestly will increase the value of your home in most cases. Not a bad choice. I just know with my ancient electrical wiring in my house, it would be quite costly, but maybe someday I'll do it. Freddie and others in the YAA community forum have said that they're thinking about installing solar. That can reduce your costs of charging tremendously or eliminate the cost of charging entirely, especially if you have battery backup storage. I know that many EV owners, even in West Virginia, where I live, in the hills and hollers of West Virginia, many EV owners have solar and they don't pay anything for their charging. I drove 1,500 miles last month and charged at home for the whole month up until yesterday. I did pay about $50 extra on my utility bill. I did the math. It makes sense. Calculated it. It's correct. But that's because of my electrical rate being about 15 cents per kilowatt hour and the fact that I drove 1,500 miles. That's a lot. I do, however, have a free charging incentive at Electrify America, so that can always affect the cost of charging in the first few years of EV ownership. Is the EV that you are considering coming with a free charging incentive? Tesla used to offer that back in the early days. Right now, various automakers such as Lucid, if you can afford a $150,000 car, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, various others are coming with some sort of charging incentive. And if you're interested in that topic, I have an article on the YAA blog, joinyaa.com, coming out today about which EVs come with a free charging incentive. It's fascinating. So be looking for that on the Join YAA website. One more question from our viewer, and then we'll probably wrap this up. Let's see who had a question. Oh, so there's a lot of confusion with which electric vehicles can be used as a backup power source for your home. Donald on the YAA community forum had this question. Can you do this with the F-150 Lightning? What about Teslas? This is really deserving its own separate show, right, Justice? We should probably put this on
Yeah,
the calendar for the next month. A whole show about
yeah,
this.
it is a very fascinating topic, and I know this is becoming bigger and bigger for people. Once it was released out there in the wild, and I think it was Rivian was the first one to say that you could do it. Then it sort of broke free, and now everyone's like, "Hey, that's not a bad alternate."
Yes. So the F-150 Lightning and the new Chevy Silverado EV, they claim to have home backup capability, and honestly, it's quite a lot of capability. I forget the kilowatt hours involved, but it's quite a lot. However, in the case of the Ford, you'll have to get a home installation done that costs a bit over $3,000 to take full advantage of the home backup. So it's not free. It's not a cool party trick. You're actually going to have to spend some money to take advantage of it. But vehicle to load is the future. My Ioniq 5 does have vehicle to load, but it's really just for charging things like my laptop, maybe some speakers if I was having a party in the forest. I don't know. But it is a useful feature. It's not going to power my whole home under a full load of electricity, though. Interesting, nevertheless. Another question, and then I think we'll wrap it up because we've got the Ray and Zach show in just 16 minutes. We better get off of here. Okay, last question, guys. Do you see the cost of electricity remaining stable, or can it spike up quickly like gas does? It spikes for the providers that send the electricity to our homes, but it does not spike for us as residential consumers. So I learned this the hard way in Texas. Well, fortunately, I wasn't personally affected, but some companies who pay different electricity rate structures were charged outrageous amounts during the freezes of February 2021. However, residential consumers, as long as you are paying your bills and just basically subscribing to the normal residential rate structure, you're not going to be seeing spikes like it does with the natural gas sector. So good news there, right?
We'll
Justice,
see.
I
We'll
realized,
see.
yeah, you're right. They may change the rules on us as EVs become more popular.
Once
Is this
once
another show
everything's
topic?
EV, yeah. Once everything's EV, we'll see how the power companies decide to keep your rates low or not.
Oh no, we're all gonna have to get solar panels and
Uh,
battery backup. We're all gonna have to be off grid. Wow.
hey,
Uh,
in California, we all pay a fee for those who have solar panels on all
eh,
of our bill. I pay $20 a month for other people to have solar panels. So
that's tough. I just realized that we're the warm-up show for the Ray and Zach show at noon. We are.
we're
So if you're watching this live on YouTube, head on over to the Ray and Zach show in about 14 minutes for more YAA news that you can use and everything you've ever wanted to know about buying a car, selling a car, car ownership. It's definitely not just about EVs. That's our show. But head over to the Ray and Zach channel. I think you'll love it. They're very amazing, amazing auto advocates and consumer advocates. Thank you for joining us today. Send us your questions. My email is justin@joinyaa.com. I would love it if you could send us some questions because we'd like to know what information would make electric vehicles more accessible to just the average driver. I love the EV nerdy stuff. I know, Justice, you do too. But if the masses are going to go electric, what does the public need to know? Send us an email, okay? We'll see you Monday. Everyone have a beautiful weekend. Thank you, Justice, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. See
Bye-bye.
everyone later.